least that's what I tell myself. People make it look so easy, in and out of love so fast. I don't give it up that easy, 'cause I won't put my heart through that. I'm either optimistic.
So Lindsay, okay, we're gonna start with the very beginning, and I would like to know why and how, what made you fall in love with music, specifically the guitar, because wow, that's probably one of the reasons why I became a fan of yours. You're killer. So
Thanks, MJ.
why did you what made you fall in love with music?
I fell in love with music ever since I was a little girl. It was always that thing that, I don't know, it just like gave me comfort in different ways that nothing else really could. And I grew up with music all around the house. So my even though my parents didn't do music professionally, like my dad played guitar, mandolin, bass, and fiddle, and my mom played piano, and my grandparents all played instruments. So I always grew up with music around me, at the holidays, and anytime I would be around my family, it would just turn into a big family jam session. And so it was really just the way I kind of grew up as, oh, this is what we do. This is our pastime. This is our therapy. This is what brings us together. This is what invokes community. And so the fact that music was just in my blood from a very early age is kind of what I leaned on, even going through school. And I started playing piano when I was 6, picked up the guitar when I was 8. And I'm so glad I started learning on piano first, because it gave me like a really good theory base. But
Right.
when I was 8 years old, it was a lot cooler to play Shania Twain songs on the guitar than than concerto number whatever when I was learning classical piano. And so when I picked up the guitar, it was just like full steam ahead, baby. And I just couldn't look back. There was just so much about that instrument that it just was always spiking my curiosity. And so it became like another limb off my body, pretty much.
Yes. And it's very rare to see you, especially in the cover art, without a guitar in front of you, which is, which I think is just, it speaks to who you are, Lindsay. And again, because you're killer at it. So it's always highlighted, and something I definitely needed to talk to you, because I think you're an inspiration, especially when it comes to women, and playing instruments and playing their own instruments on their songs and whatnot. You're an inspiration in that way. So I really needed to touch on that for sure. So, and then speaking of, the songs that you release, it's always present. You always hear that guitar present. It's like your best friend in every single song. And we're going to start with Criminal, because this album, the project, was a killer album, a really awesome introduction to who you are as an artist. And Criminal kind of sets the tone for everything else that kind of came out afterwards, meaning that you're very open about heart matters of the heart, whether it be heartbreak or falling in love, or the challenges that come with them both. So Criminal, around that time, let's talk about the development of this album, the project, and then we'll move forward into now, because there's just been this huge growth, which I so very much appreciate. So let's talk about the album, the project, and Criminal for sure, Lindsay.
And thank you for asking about that. Yeah, the project is kind of where I started. It's where I first was, in the studio, really figuring out what my musical voice was going to be and what that was going to mean. And Criminal was a song that kind of changed the game. From then on, I felt like my career was kind of clicking into gear. It was my first #1 ever. And I was the first girl in 10 years to have a #1 song on the Canadian country charts. And the last one had been Terry Clark 10 years before, which is just wild that had been 10 years
Crazy.
Until that had happened. And so I was really grateful for that song for so many ways, and that album for sort of putting me on the map and saying, this is who I am. I play guitar. I'm a little bit, Keith Urban, John Mayer, Sheryl Crow, and this is what Lindsay Ell means.
Well, and that's why I asked you about it, because it really, not only did it like really set the tone for who you are as a person and as an artist, but like you said, 10 years 10 years for a number one, a female on a number one single. So it was huge. It still is. We still get requests for it to this day. And
Yes, that's amazing.
It's one of my personal favorites to spin, Lindsay, for sure. And you had mentioned John Mayer in there, which brings me to the Continuum Project, because this album was, and I think I read somewhere that, someone challenged you to do this project, and wow, are we as fans ever grateful for it. So let's talk about this one and the John Mayer kind of influence there, because you mentioned him, Lindsay, the Continuum Project.
I mean, John Mayer as an artist has inspired me ever since I started playing guitar, and just who he is, like his writing, his artistry is just remarkable. I don't think there's another artist like him out there. And so from the first time I got into John Mayer, it was when Heavier Things came out, his second album, and I was just so into his writing and who he was. And then Continuum dropped, and I could not get over that album. Like, still to this day, Continuum is on my top 5 albums of all time. And my producer of my first record, The Project, Christian Bush from the band Sugarland, that we may know him from, he was the mastermind behind the Continuum Project, because it was before we had actually gone in the studio to record the project. And I was like trying to figure out my sound and what I wanted to do. And he was like, Lindsay, what's your favorite album? And I was like, well, Christian, that's Continuum by John Mayer. And he's like, okay, perfect. I want you to go into your studio, because I'm kind of a studio nerd. I sit in this room and just record things. And he's like, I want you to record that album front to back. I want every instrument, every guitar solo, every bass part, every drum part, and turn it into me in 2 weeks. And so when I left his office, I was like, okay, this shouldn't be too hard. I mean, I know this album so well.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, it's different to listen to an album and love it so much and then recreate it in your own voice. Like, you just need to learn something to a different depth.
Wow.
And so I was so grateful to be able to do that. And I never thought I was going to release it. It was sitting on a hard drive in my studio, and I just turned it into Christian as my homework assignment. That was the perfect thing to prop up going in to record the project, because all of a sudden, like, it was like everything clicked and I knew what I wanted to do. But fans were asking about it as I would talk about it in interviews. And so eventually we decided to release like a version of it. So we wanted it to sound a little bit different than, of course, the ultimate John's version. So we took out all the drums and just kind of released like a organic, more raw kind of version of the album. But still to this day, it's one of my faves.
Well, and it's amazing to get to talk to you about it, because it's one thing to read about it and then another to hear you talk about it. And you can just see it in your face. You just light up the way I do when I listen to it. And the story behind it is incredible. And Waiting on the World to Change, your version of it is it's just perfect. So I needed to bring that up. And so now we're going to get into heart theory. Lindsay.
This album meant so much to me. I mean, I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into writing this album. Oftentimes music is therapy, so much to listen, but also so much to create and to write and to record and release. And writing and releasing Hard Theory was like my musical diary. It was an album that I wrote from top to bottom to be able to be this therapy map, so to speak, that people could listen to at any time they're navigating through anything difficult in life, whether that's a breakup, losing a job, moving across a country, going through something with their family. And I wanted it to be sort of that roadmap of what I went through, the shock to denial, to anger, to depression, to finally, like asking questions, to then finally getting to a spot of acceptance where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The journey of what you went through, you've learned the lesson, you've looked back and been grateful for it, and then you're ready to open your heart and move on. And so this album was just so important to me as a person, and I'm just so grateful that I could release it out to the world so that fans could maybe go on that journey with me.
Well, let me tell you, because what I found very fascinating about this album was, when it was coming out, before it came out, the promo of it talking about the 7 stages of grief. And I thought, okay, number one, it's very rare where there's an album that is so, it's progressional, right? It's from
Mhm.
start to finish, and it should take you through
Mhm.
a story. And so the minute I heard that it was about the 7 stages of grief, I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Then when you hear the album and you're reading headlines and things like that about you, and you're going, okay, but I want to hear the album because now it does the headlines are nothing compared to what's really going on with someone deep down, right?
Totally.
And then it comes out. And what I found fascinating is there's a couple songs on there that are almost that anger stage. And I
Mhm.
really think that that's important to touch on. The Want Me Back, for example. There is that stage, obviously, in a breakup where, yeah, you go through the sadness and missing someone, and then you go through a realization, no, I'm better off. And then you go through this, no, man, it was never meant to be. And I'm pissed at you for whatever reason. And Want Me Back is sort of a culmination of all of these things. And it's like, I know the pain behind that message where you're like, of course you want me back, right? It's actually a painful place, the anger. So
Totally.
when you're creating this song in particular, and even the whole album, did you were these emotions legitimately coming out as you're writing them? And I imagine they were.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's wild going into write songwriting sessions, as
Yeah.
an artist. You literally are walking in being like, this is what I'm experiencing today, and this is what I feel like I need to write. And really, as a songwriter, it wasn't until I got to that place where I was willing to be vulnerable and go there that you don't really get access to the magic of it, because I think it's those things that can let you understand, okay, if I get this vulnerable, that's when people can connect to, okay, I've been through this before, I know what that feels like.
Mm. Oh, and again, the way the song is delivered, because like I said, Want Me Back, it's one of those tongue in cheek thing that you're just kind of, you're almost cocky and confident at that point, but because
Mhm.
it's anger and it's on this Heart Theory album, and if you understand the 7 stages of grief, you know that the anger is coming from a really painful place. It's the most painful, I think. And
Totally.
then, and then you get to, songs like Good on You, where again, the story is, you're seeing, Instagram pictures or stories of your ex with somebody new, and you're like, well, she looks good on you, but you can still hear that inside your heart is breaking. It's almost like
I
you have to
know.
get to that place where you're like, okay, I'm wishing you well, but inside secretly kind of like
Girl, yes. And I think it's like a emotion that all of us have felt. And if we
yes,
can just be human and be like, okay, real talk though, I am so happy for you. I'm so happy for you because you care about them. You want to see somebody move on and be
yeah,
happy. But inside, I am dying because
yeah,
this is still so hard. And it's like,
yeah,
how do you encapsulate that feeling into a song? And I feel like Good on You explains it.
it
It tells
does.
that story.
Oh, and perfectly. And again, it's not just the lyrics that were written. It's how you express it too, because you can hear underneath the lines, underneath the words that you're saying. You can hear it's like you're gritting your teeth, going, like you're
Thank
forcing the
you.
words good on you. So it's well performed, and I just love it. And then now that brings us to, you've got a lot going on, seeing you at the CCMAs, and then now you're hosting Canada's Got Talent, which is a joy to see you on there because you're awesome. I just love seeing the cutout because I love AGT, so I'm used to seeing Terry Crews, right? And then so seeing
Yeah.
you backstage, loving all of the performances and going, whoa, it's just amazing. It's just amazing.
Thank
And now
you.
you've got a new single coming out, and I was so happy and honored to be a part of the call,
Yeah.
and where you got to introduce it, because I was hooked the minute that you explained what Right on Time was about. And
Thank
I think,
you.
as I mentioned to you, I had been having conversations with a dear friend of mine, and she's engaged, but we talk a lot about children, and like everyone's having babies, and suddenly that's all the conversation what it's about, and you kind of feel left out, and you're like, but what about me? And the Sex in the City episode where Carrie's like, can I throw myself like a shower for
Right.
this or that.
Right. That's it.
So right
Yes.
on time. And when you talked about it, I thought, wow, this is serendipitous. So please explain to us, for you now, coming out of Heart Theory, which is already it's 2 years old already,
Mhm.
and now you're where you are now. Why was it important for you to write and put out this song and this very specific subject, and I think specific for women, in particular? Why was it important for you to put this one out?
MJ, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think Right on Time right now is literally my story of what I feel like I'm going through, of what I feel like a lot of women can identify with. I think that, we reach this time in our lives where a lot of our friends are checking those boxes. A lot of them are getting married, a lot of them are having babies and starting families, maybe onto their second kids, and a lot of them are going after their dream careers. And for whatever reason, if you are not in any of those trajectories, you automatically compare yourself to those other stories. And I really wanted to write a song. It was so important to me when I was feeling this and I was going through, like, okay, am I doing this all wrong? Am I falling behind? Where did I miss the train ticket to go do all of those things? And it's like, no, 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 no. You are on your right path. You are writing your own story right now, and you don't need to be on anybody else's trajectory. You're on your own trajectory. And I think that as women specifically, we just feel so much pressure in some of those directions, whether it's from societal pressures or whether it's from social media or friend, family. And I think that it's a lot of pressure for us to hit the timing, whenever the timing is right, the time to be beautiful, the time to maybe be a mother, the time to go after the career we want. And it's like, the only person who really gets to dictate the right timing is you. And you can't be late. You can't be falling behind if it's your own life, because you get to make that story.
Yeah.
And so it was really important to me to write a message that reminded people that, okay, I know the pressure is always going to be there. The social media comparison is always going to be there. But at the end of the day, you are the one who gets to feel good about the life you're living and doing all these amazing things, and know that the things are falling into place in your life when they should.
Oh, and it's and again, the timing, the name of the song, and it's just like, it just all hits. It just all hits. And when I'm talking about timing too, thank you for saying that, number one, everything that you just shared, Lindsay, because you brought up comparing, right? We compare ourselves, and the timing. What you hear it all the time. Clock is ticking. Clock is ticking. It's like our biologically, we get reminded every day that if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, like, time's running out, and you go, but how ridiculous is that? When you look at, in your case, even my case, we're successful in what we do, and yet we're still comparing. And then a lot of people
totally
still comparing. And then a lot
still
of people
comparing.
A lot of people would say, even, men feel this way too. And it's different for men. I can't speak for men, but I would guess that it's more about inadequacy if they haven't gotten married or haven't had children at a certain age.
Totally.
For women, it's a pressure too, right? You feel pressure, like you have to. So I just think that this story coming from you, and then of course right now there's another single from another amazing Canadian artist, Neil Towns, when she's talking about when's it going to happen. So then here's your answer saying, well, whenever it's time, right?
Right. It's like, calm down. You don't
Yeah.
need to necessarily be like, okay, well, I'm so stressed now because I'm just waiting for the thing to happen, waiting for the person in shining armor to come up on your doorstep. And it's like, you just need to take time being grateful for what's in your life, live in the present, and know that things are going to walk into your life when it's the right time. If you spend so much time waiting and wanting, that's when it's not going to come. It's when you, like, forget about the person, when that person's going to show up. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't even see this coming.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true, man. And I think that this single is very important. And it's a very important one personally for you to come out after Heart Theory, because I can't imagine going through a breakup even, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. You feel like something wrong with me that it just feels like I can't make things work. And then that is such a I think it's a natural, normal feeling as long as we, allow ourselves to express it, of course. But it's a gut wrenching one, and I know it, very well. So to get to a place where you can go, you know what? Never mind. Never
Yeah.
mind. Look
Never
what I'm
mind.
doing. Look what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Look what I'm achieving. And either way, I'm good. So I can't thank you enough for this song. And I just think you are one heck of a special artist. So, Lindsay, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
MJ, I just appreciate you for being a fan. Thank you for championing me and my music. And I hope I can come see you in person sometime soon.
Well, you better, if you can't, I'll be hopping on the quickest bus, train, or plane to come
Done.
see you. Well, congratulations.
Amazing.
Congratulations
Thank
on all your
you.
success. Keep killing it in everything you do. And I'm enjoying Canada's Got Talent. You keep doing that. And we'll for sure. For sure. Is there an album coming out? I need to know. Is there an album?
It is in the works, ma'am. It is in the works.
Good. Excellent. Well, what a pleasure speaking with you, Lindsay. And you take care. You take care.
Thanks so much, MJ. Such a pleasure.